This is harder for me than I tend to make it look. I could really use a fucking beer once in a while, too. Hey everybody, for the last time, this is Mekbeasy, and we need to have a talk. The month is March and the year is 2013, and I am in dire need for what I'm going to be calling the hard reset. The hard reset to me is what I'm going to be calling yet another attempt of mine at a planned social suicide. In 4 months, I've made more drastic changes to my life than I had chosen to make in less than 4 or 5 years. Some of them have put out proper results, and some of them have actually brought me to the cringing, depressing, crippling conclusion that I cannot sustain the things that I wish I could. I like to remind myself that in the very beginning of all of this, I told myself that it was going to be a learning experience, and that the options that I present myself with and the choices that I make are all a direct result of what I intend to create as part of my environment. In 2007, I had discovered a program called Fruity Loops Studio, and there's a free demo available of it that allows you to use the program to its fullest power, except exporting your audio files or saving your work. In which, imagine borrowing your friend's guitar but not being able to actually start a band or record anything because it wasn't your guitar. I pursued that small little fun activity a little more than I thought I would, and I used it as a creative outlet for emotion and pain, confusion and struggle. It's best to note that additionally in 2007 I was not in school, although I was supposed to be. While everybody else who I knew and grew up with was going to high school, some of them becoming freshmen, some of them becoming sophomores, or what have you, I wasn't. I was at home, doing nothing, making music on the computer. I wasn't enrolled in school, and I wasn't prepared to go, and I had no ambition to. And my family situation didn't have me in kind of the circumstance to allow me to just go again after waiting so long. Caring and loving as they are, my parents were understanding enough to know that I was sort of a bizarre creature and that my natural intellectual level and my intelligence didn't require me to be in school at that point, and that regardless of how far I fell behind, that I would accurately catch up. Of course, at that point, I was so manically depressed and obsessed with myself and what people thought about me that I really didn't think I was going to make it to 16. I was 14 at the time. In 2008, I had suddenly become the only child at home. It was me and my parents, and I hadn't seen very much of either one of them for very long, and we were going through a severe financial struggle. Things around me were starting to fall apart, and I was starting to escape more often into a different world. And even though I was spending 24 out of 24 hours a day with my family, they didn't know who I was. And there were people as far as Canada, or maybe as low as Australia, that knew more about me than my mom or my dad. 2009, we moved into the house that I'm in right now. And things started to go up, and then they went back down. This is something I'm very, very used to. But at the same time, when everything started to go back down, I really didn't feel it. Because I was only very aware of the up. Because as soon as things started to get grim, I would lock my eyes to the computer, close my door, and grind away at countless hours of online video gaming with strangers. Late 2009, I had realized I had made life companions and best friends on these online video games. People who I wouldn't replace for the world, and people who I've watched grow and are still friends of mine. I cherish their friendship and would never replace it. In early 2010, I finally decided to tell them how old I actually was. You see, I actually went on and carried a lie to them, and told them that I was nearly 4 years older than I was, just to be accepted by them. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to create a new person. I didn't want them to know anything about who this animal was that I was at home. Because I realized that the person who I had created around them was a way more interesting and more exciting person, relatable and fun to be around than I actually was. They all widely accepted it, and everything carried on as planned. Everything was okay, and I had a lot of great friends through it, and they still accept me, and I still hang out with them. Of course, the childish banter back and forth once in a while is expected, but I bring it upon myself. When 2011 hit, I was going through a severe drug problem. I had become addicted to Vicodin, in which I was acquiring through favors and transactions with somebody of lesser reputation at the school I used to go to. I was taking a very copious amount of Vicodin, along with an antidepressant pill in order to make it through the day, coupled with a dependency on caffeine and energy drinks to keep me going. Of course, that is not exactly what you wanted to hear from somebody who was barely 17 years old and trying to get his life back together, in a sense. Near the end of 2011, I'd realized I had completely 180'd my life. I became a social deviant, and I was friends with a lot of people, and I made a couple of enemies, but for the most part, I had become this monarch of academic excellence. I had conquered 2 years of high school in less than 9 months, and I had moved upon a new ground of education and respect from my peers, but more so from my teachers, the superintendent of my school district, and my principal, who is renowned to be quite the dick. I was now maintaining two entirely separate personas. I was one mildly sarcastic, very rude and yet humorous, almost a depressed, agonized comedian mixed with a theater kid and some sort of musical protege. And then when I was at school, I was a professional peer counselor and somebody who had put the needs and wants of others above himself. And I wanted nothing more than to keep the people around me happy and to completely help and rekindle the fire of life in complete strangers. And it's around the beginning of 2012 when that actually fell apart. I graduated at the very end of 2011, and I finished school a little bit later than everybody else. And that was okay with me, because the fact that I finished school was already an admirable achievement. But now that I'm here and I have something to prove for it, I felt just as good. Of course, some would like to argue that my diploma is probably not as good as theirs. When you grow up in the Victor Valley and you graduate from high school at all, you have no credibility. And it doesn't matter whether your diploma says that it's from the Adult Education Society or from the Sesame Street School of Academic Alphabet. Either way, no one's going to give a fuck who you are. You better get your shit together and go to college somewhere else in order to be anybody, or else you'll remain a bottom-feeding scum of this city. And we all know it, and we all accept it. Those of you who are trying to attend the Victor Valley College can do what you want to take care of your general education. But I'll tell you what, if you want to major in anything and approach a bachelor's and whatever the hell you want to do, get the fuck out of this city. Additionally, in the beginning of 2012, all the way until the very end of 2012, I had become a patient of the Medical Marijuana Society. I did this because at the age of 18, I had an appointment which diagnosed me officially with Charcot-Marie-Tooth muscular dystrophy, a neurodegenerative disease of the legs and spine. The muscle tissue in my legs is slowly deteriorating, and possibly by the time I'm in my mid-40s, I won't be able to walk for shit. And right now, I deal with an amount of pain that I cannot equate to anything any other human being on this planet without my disease has ever experienced. I could only say that if you had ever had a piece of hot metal slid down the inside of your thighs and made contact with your knee, and every step felt like a sharp blade was cutting the very tips of your kneecaps off, shaving it away ever so slowly, that maybe you can relate to the kind of pain I have daily. I didn't want to have to go through that pain anymore. And I didn't want to have to take meds. I don't like taking pills. I had a problem with pills. Pills made me a very bad person. Pills made me hurt people, and pills made me possibly hurt somebody more than I thought I did. I watched somebody throw up in the middle of a quad and have to be hauled out on a stretcher in an ambulance for possible overdose of morphine, upwards of 60 milligrams all in one hit without eating or drinking beforehand. Knowing that that was my responsibility and that I gave him the pills, in the event that he died, I would have been tried for assisted suicide or manslaughter. Although some may think that living the life of someone who smokes marijuana and spends time with other heads may be a glamorous, happy lifestyle, it's not. It's actually a constant struggle with knowing that you're performing a deed that's shunned by society. It's actually every time that you light your joint or you light your pipe and you take a drag of the sweet ganja that you're actually taking yourself down another notch. You're bringing yourself to the same level as a lot of other low-life individuals. And because of your choices and because of your only available alternative medication solution, you've now put yourself in a position in which society will no longer accept you as a working human being or employee. And when I say society, I talk about the greater capitalistic, communistic American society in which we suffer from today. While bull-charging my addictions to marijuana and sometimes my binge drinking with friends of mine, underage of course, I started to have manic moments of serious bouts of depression. I couldn't really deal with them quite right, and what would suck is when I would think to myself, what is it that I could change if I could change? What are those things that I wish I could do that I'm not doing? And how is my level of procrastination and laziness hit this point in which I'm smoking weed and I have an excuse not to do those things? At the very end of 2012, I had acquired a very serious job, as comical or strange as it might be. I had become known as a generic combat role player for the United States Army. I would go to a military base, dress up like a Haji, and get yelled at and treated poorly by soldiers. Maybe 45 minutes every 3 days. It's a very strange job, and yet at the same time it was a very important job. But for the most part it was a job. I was not free of drugs while I was working at that job. And part of me wanted to accept the fact that I had finally found a string of work and a career in which I could pursue that didn't require me to go through pain. And that I could still use my medicinal solution and still go to work. But why did that have to be a factor? Why did the fact that I could still smoke weed have to be a part of the reason why I needed to find work? Was I working to smoke weed, or was I smoking weed so I could work? There was a lot of pain involved in the job near the very end of it, and at the same time there was a lot of glory and money that came from it. It was very important, and it came at a very important time in my life. And I think without that blessing that I had received in the form of that job, thank you, Jason Lundy, that maybe I wouldn't be in the position I am today, and my entire life could possibly have been different. In December of 2012, I had chosen to relinquish my grip on medical marijuana and go completely drug-free. Well, illicit drugs. As a result of my incompetence and my intolerance of this insane amount of pain that I have to deal with, I was then given a prescription for painkillers. I've already taken painkillers before, and we're not talking about Vicodin, we're talking Percocet, Soma, things like that. And my body doesn't know how to respond to that thing. Because maybe somebody who didn't used to use pain medication regularly as something very recreational would probably not suffer from what I do, which is an incredible tolerance to medication. Within weeks of receiving my prescription, I went from the recommended dose to twice to nearly 3 times. And taking 3 times my recommended dosage would mean taking it less often. taking 3 pills one night and then not taking any medicine for 2 days to make up for the fact that I had made that mistake. But I'd gotten to the point where the only way to numb the pain was to take too much. And that's not very good for me. At the very end of the year, near the New Year's, I had decided that I needed to make changes. One of those changes was to take less of that medication and fucking deal with it. I was going through the pain a lot before I got the weed, and I can go through the pain a lot more now because I can fucking deal with it. For 18 years, I just fucking dealt with it. There's nothing different now. The fact is, I have my own primary doctor, PPO insurance, and enough gas money to get me back and forth to the quack that gives it to me. In a feeble attempt to maintain a resolution in the cliches of everybody's New Year's chant, I went and made a couple of dedications to myself. One of them was to eat more healthy on a regular basis, and then to slowly turn that regular basis into matter of fact. Eat more healthy was the goal. It was to accept the things that I had never eaten prior, and if I was given the option to have a hamburger or a salad, to take the fucking salad once in a while. I'm not very out of shape in terms of how much do I weigh, but I am very out of shape. After about, I would say, the better part of 10 years of sitting on the computer and playing video games and rarely going outside because of my very limited ability to perform in physical activities such as sports, I had built the weakest and most brittle body I had ever heard of. Of course, it was mine. Simultaneously, I had told myself that every time I did something that was off of my schedule or off the beaten path, such as wasting 2 to 3 hours on the computer doing nothing, or possibly doing something that didn't benefit me in any productive or forward manner, that I would try to work out. And I would do something a little bit different, out of the routine that was actually considered healthy. Boy, when I make a list of the things that I fucked up, that was the first one that went. I was able to pull it off successfully for about a month and a half, and after that point I fell off. And the reason for that is because I suffer from a serious amount of self-confidence dyslexia. I am not very happy about the way that I do things, and instead of reading into how I can do things better and make everything better, I look into it as in, how can I fuck this up, and when and how will I fuck this up? Additionally, once again, I had also chosen to remove fast food from my diet. Holy crap, that's fucking impossible in America. I tried my damnedest, but the problem is I live with 2, now 3, other individuals who are not on my strict diet. And they love me and cherish me and support me as much as they possibly can, but in a sense they failed me as much as I failed myself. We cannot make that sort of a drastic change, and until I live on my own or live with a roommate or possibly when I'm going to college and it's the right thing to do, I will make that move. But I have already made the mistake. Am I eating fast food now? Sure, once in a while. Have I completely cut it out, or am I eating it every other day? No. I'm only doing it in the case in which I'm hungry now, and I don't want to have to wait 45 minutes for something to be done cooking. I want to jam to this place down the street from here about 5 minutes, order myself a double fucking A, and come home and stuff my face with my own delicious sadness. And that breaks me back down to eating more healthy more often, which I am still surprisingly pulling off. I'm not eating hamburgers every day like I used to. I haven't eaten an entire pound of bacon in over 4 months. And I don't go through packs of sausage every 2 weeks. As you know, at one point I was engorging more sausage than the owner of a San Francisco bathhouse. That brings us up to about right now. 3 weeks ago I had made the choice to change things in my life. I needed to stop escaping. What had happened is I came into a lot of very depressing, very dark situations at one time. I had a lot of life-changing moments. I lost a few friends, and I kind of had a bunch of fallouts that I wasn't expecting. At the same time, my body is still trying to cope with not smoking marijuana and not drinking, and it's not helping. At that same time, I'm starting to make more brash decisions, and I'm struggling with my bipolar disorder a lot more than I used to. because I have no way to suppress those feelings, and I have now voided myself of the vice in which I used to use to suppress and bottle that anger and frustration. The path I chose was to reduce, i.e., eliminate all distractions. And it's becoming a bigger problem than it became a solution. I told myself that I'd give it maybe a week and a half to see if it's actually what I need to do. And I'll be entirely honest, the first week was pretty amazing. Within 2 days of making that choice and assuming the position, I decided that I would leave my comfort zone and start doing things that were a little bit different. That started in New Year's when I decided to go dancing, and somebody in my position with my medical disabilities cannot dance. It is not something that my body is physically capable of pulling off more than once a month. And when I do it until I can't move, and then I'm bedridden and nearly hospitalized for 2 or 3 days. In this attempt to leave my comfort zone, I had made a very serious and I'm hoping docile dedication to a band. I play the keyboard, I play the piano, and I've always played music for my whole life. It's something that I've always wished is to dedicate a serious portion of my life to music. I have nothing but good things to say about this band. They're an amazing group of people with 3 amazing individuals, and we're working on finding a 5th, that's including me. But my problem is, I don't know if I can do it. Not only do I don't know if I can do it, but I feel like I'm using the band as a form of a rebound. I've decided to fall back on this new venture in which now I have almost endangered the lives of 3 other people. Because if I can't pull off the dedication, or if something comes in between me and them, I will once again fail, and at this point it will actually bring people with me. This is why it's out of my comfort zone. I've never professionally played music before. Specifically, I've never professionally played the piano. But I'm learning, and I have a lot of drive to learn. I have an understanding of melody and a good ear. I understand things like arpeggio, scales, and chords, and when to come in and when not to come in, bars, the structure of music, and things like that. But I am not very aware of the advanced techniques in which the individuals I have come in contact with are a part of. They all understand music theory, and they're all incredibly intellectual individuals. They're smart, they're fast, and they work together very well, and I'm like the newest tool in the box of old things. Regardless of my lack of hope and my inability to be confident in how I will perform with this new group on this new venture, I still have to accept that it's outside of my comfort zone. But that brings me to where I am right now, tonight. Tonight is quite possibly the worst night I've had since the beginning of the year. I'm just barely getting out of a sickness, and even when I say that, I have to knock on wood, because I know I'm probably not out of it just yet. I realize today that I've tried to make more changes than I had money to begin with. I have tried to take on an entirely new life with multiple steps happening at one time, instead of taking it step for step and working on those pieces one by one. I've always had this problem. I like to take on a lot of projects all at one time, and if I have 20 things going on at once and I get 1% of each of those 20 things done, then I got 20% of things completed. It makes me feel productive, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something good. And the reason why somebody like me does that is because we have the lack of a job or stability. We use it as some sort of an excuse for us not actually getting anything done, to make a difference in what's around you, and I guess getting a new feeling for being a part of something. And as a result of the changes I've chosen to do, I am now actually doing absolutely nothing at any given time. The downtime is incredibly depressing. And the reason why it's depressing is because I realize that in life there are some things you just need to fucking ignore. I'm finding myself to be slightly more volatile, and I'm not very good at concentrating. But on top of that, I feel like over the last 4 weeks or so, I have completely lost the ability to be consistent. I have no consistency. I have no ability to repeat. I'm constantly stuck on go, and I'm never on stop. And you need to stop. You need to be able to turn around and recount what you've done and make charts of what it is that you've completed. Make a graph of everything in which you've gone from time started until time completed and quality of work accomplished. Sadly, I've found myself at time spent and quality have not moved. My time spent has completely been erased, and it says time's thoughts, ideas had. Amazing revelations occurred in which utilization of such epiphanies completely blacked out. So starting today, you are witnessing a glorious rebirth. You are here for what I'm calling the hard reset. I'm going to stop certain changes that I've made. I'm going to revert decisions that I have chosen, and I'm going to pursue certain ventures in which I feel are appropriate, and I am confident in my ability to complete these. Starting from one and working down the list. Continue to eat well. That's actually been really good for myself. I've started to drink less energy drinks, and I'm finding that I have more energy throughout the day, let alone waking up at a better hour. But I'm also learning about different foods and learning about new things and trying new stuff and eating vegetables. 2, working out every time I fuck up. I've already completely lost that, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to dedicate myself to trying to do something that I feel is unstable and uncomfortable. I can't do it. I don't need to work out right now. I'm very in shape in terms of I'm a very skinny son of a bitch. 3, I can still eat less fast food, but maybe I can cut out certain culprits. Maybe no Del Taco, or maybe even no hamburgers. If I do get fast food, I can just get chicken. Or, they still make salads at fast food joints too. Number 4, and quite possibly the most important and worst decision that I could have made, which was completely eliminating my vices. Without drinking and without smoking, I had no way of actually erasing things. I've already broken out of this, and as of today, it's been about 4 days in which I've slowly returned back to the life I was used to. I will still use this as a statue, but I'm going to alter it slightly. I will not be using video games or playing video games or sitting on the computer throughout the morning hours. From the point when I wake up until about the mid-afternoon, 2 or 3 hours before my father gets home, I won't be playing anything. But once everybody starts to peter down and the boring TV shows come on and people are preparing to go to bed, I will escape into my bedroom, allow everyone to know that I am leaving, and I'll be in my room to play video games. And if somebody comes in and it requires a chore of me or wants my attention, I will pause and turn it off. I will not dedicate myself to these time wasters, but I will want to dedicate myself to the family more often. But the most important, this is it. My final video under the alias of Mekbeasy. It's about time that this charade has died. When I think about Mekbeasy, regardless of what you might think of the name Mekbeasy, I think of failure. I think of anger towards the certain individuals in which I dedicated months of my times to. I think of the hate and anger that I had generated by certain people. I think of some of the nasty comments and messages that I got back when things weren't okay. I remember the DMC takedown that I got hit with when I had used the very beginning of a cinematic that I didn't get permission to use. I remember the amount of dedication and effort that I had put into a video. Hours and hours of work and only to get 70 views out of it. I was doing something in which my family didn't entirely understand nor did they agree with. And then I bring myself back to this, my vlogging. I still enjoy this. I still enjoy doing this and I still love doing it. This is very important to me, and it's a form of therapy and it's a form of social connection in which I don't get, possibly not until I get a job. I will continue this. I will continue to use this camera and I will involve people in my life, and let alone I will begin a new project very soon. It's a step towards improving my ability to be consistent, in which we spoke about earlier. But I have to take this moment to say goodbye. I have to make the dedication now to let you know that this is it. I will not be making another Mekbeasy video, and I will be missing very many of you. Of course, all of you are welcome to find the new channel, in which I will put in the description of this video, and in an annotation possibly. But from now on, I will no longer use the name Mekbeasy. I have too many subscribers who had followed me for the right reason, and I'm making videos of the wrong content. I have very, very many friends, and a lot of you have continued to stay right here behind me the entire time. Your hopeful words and your friendship and your warm compliments and comments have always been a great part of this experience. And I want you to continue to follow me, as I will continue to follow you, even though I have not been very good about that. But I do want to tell you this. I do sincerely love what you've done for me. And a lot of you were a part of helping me get through very difficult times in my life. Some of the comments hit at such a moment that it actually made me cry. And I love that a lot of you have gotten slightly more popular because of the Together to the Top videos that you guys were sponsored in when I initially made the channel. And I love that you're still here. I want to stay in contact with you, but I also finally want to say goodbye. So for the last time, in true Mekbeasy fashion, stay classy, YouTube. Mekbeasy out.